we know back in those days they dwelt in tents, correct? Mm-hmm. And they used a lot of nails to erect the tents or to keep them secure, while they dwelt on them, for instance, from wind and stuff like that. So they had this rope and then this nail to hold them in place. Well, I remember, I'm not sure if it's in Jubilees or one of the extra biblical books, where it tells the story how Abraham went to go visit one of his sons because he hadn't seen him in a while, and he goes to see his son, and his son is away with his son is away, and Abraham proceeds to talk to his son's wife, but his son's wife wasn't, it made it seem like she wasn't really interested in Abraham. She was a little bit disrespectful, and she was mistreating the kids inside, just based on what it says. She was mistreating the kids or talking wrong to the kids inside. So in Abraham's departing words, he says to her, "Tell my son when he returns to replace this nail on the outside of the tent." Now, in that thought, what he was saying, tell my son to replace you when he get back, because he saw that she was mistreating the kids, and that she didn't offer him any water, any food, or any drink for the animal. I don't know if it was camel, whatever he was riding on at the time. So obviously there's a different level of thinking when it comes to even what we're learning here, the pictorial Hebrew and all that. Just from that story, it tells us there's a whole lot that we don't know, that we don't know about. So I'm wondering if any one of you ever read that. And again, I think it's in Jude. I'm sorry?
I have it. May I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Awesome. All right.
Oh, you say you have it. Oh, okay. I thought you said you have not read it. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, read it.
No, I've read it a couple times.
Yeah, that's very interesting, that story.
It's the book of Yashar, chapter 20.
Yashar, okay.
1. I'll start from verse 26. And Abram said to Ishmael's wife, wait a second. Oh, you know what? I'll start from verse 22. And in some time, Abram said to Sarah, his wife, I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I desire to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time. And Abram rode upon one of his camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he heard he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. And Abram went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon, and asked after Ishmael, and he found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children, and Ishmael, her husband, and his mother, Hagar, were not with them. Verse 25. And Abram asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where's Ishmael? And she said, He's gone to the field to hunt. And Abram was still mounted on the camel, for he would not go off the ground, as he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not go off the camel. And Abram said unto Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water that I may drink, for I am fatigued from the journey. And Ishmael's wife answered and said to Abram, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting at the tent, and did not notice Abram, neither did she ask him who he was.
Dang.
But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them. She also cursed her Ishmael,
oh, wow.
and reproached him. And Abram heard the words of Ishmael's wife to her children, and he was very angry and displeased. And Abram called to the woman and to come out to him from
So
the tent.
Ishmael had a hood rat then.
Wait, what was verse 39. And Abram called to the woman to come out to him out of the tent. The woman came and she stood opposite side of Abram. Abram still sitting on the camel. And he told Ishmael's wife, when your husband returns home, tell him this. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing thou was not where he spoke unto me and said, when Ishmael your husband return, tell him, did this man say, when you come home, put away this nail of the tent which you have placed here, and placed another nail in its stead. And Abram finished his instructions to the woman and turned and went off home on his camel. And after that, Ishmael came from the chase, he and his mother, and returned to the tent, and his wife spoke these words unto him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, seeing thou was not at home. And he said unto me, when your husband come home, tell him. The old man said this, put away the nail of the tent which you place here, and put another nail in its stead. There's verse 35. And Ishmael heard the words of his wife, and he knew father that his wife did not honor him. And Ishmael understood his father's words that he had spoken to his wife, and Ishmael hearkened unto the voice of his father, and cast off that woman and sent him away. And Ishmael,
I love that story, man. I love that story.
To the land of Canaan, and he took another wife, and he brought her in his tent to the place where he dwelt. And at the end of 3 years, Abram said, I will go again to see Ishmael my son. So 3 years later, I have not seen him. He rode down his camel into the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael at about, again, noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent, and he said, he is not here, my master, for he is gone to hunt in the fields, to feed the camels. And the woman said to Abram, turn in, my master, into the tent, and eat a morsel of bread, for your soul must be weary on account of this journey. So, I mean, the new wife, she's
doing everything the opposite now.
And Abram, I'm almost done. And Abram said to her, I will not stop, for I'm in haste to continue my journey, but give me a little water to drink, for I have thirst. And the woman hasted and ran into the tent, and she brought water and bread to Abraham, which she placed before him. She urged him to eat. He ate, he drank, he was comforted, and he baruched his son Ishmael. And he finished his meal, and he baruched Yahuwah. And he said to Ishmael's wife, when Ishmael comes home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither and asked after you, and you were not here. And I bought him out bread and water, and he did eat and drink, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words unto me. When Ishmael your husband return home, say unto him, the nail of the tent which you have is very good. Do not put it away from the tent.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I love that story, man. So obviously there's different meanings of the Hebrew language that we just have no clue of. I mean, just looking at that one example right there with the nail, I never would have thought that it referenced a woman.